Unique people leading unique lives shape and inform Iowa City. This community is enhanced by these women and men who live in our midst, working, teaching, creating. Welcome to a series of conversations with people who have stories to tell. Join my guests and me, Ellen Buchanan, in a series of interviews called One of a Kind. James Dixon, the Philip Greeley Clapp Carver Distinguished Professor at the University School of Music, is a native of Iowa. His association with the University of Iowa spans a half a century as a student, a conductor, and a teacher. Retiring as conductor of the U of I Symphony this spring, Professor Dixon has over the years inspired and challenged numerous musicians. In addition to his university duties, he led the Quad City Symphony, one of the oldest symphonies in the nation, for 29 years, retiring in 1994. His conducting career includes the 7th Army Symphony Band in Germany, the New England Conservatory Symphony Orchestra in Boston, and the associate conductor of the Minneapolis Symphony Orchestra, now the Minnesota Orchestra. He has appeared as guest conductor of national symphonies in Greece and Peru and North German, West German Radio Orchestra, and the Chicago Symphony. Professor Dixon's conducting and teaching have earned him many awards. His efforts brought him the Harriet Cohen International Award for Conducting. In 1963, he was awarded the coveted Gustav Mahler Medal for his commitment to the music of Mahler. ASCAP in '76 awarded him the American Composers Alliance Laurel Leaf. In 1980, he won the Columbia University Ditson's Conductors Award. Many of his students have gone on to conduct as various positions worldwide. He has made recordings in London with Royal Philharmonic and served on judging panels from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Canadian National Music Competition, and the Exxon Conductors Program. Dixon received an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters from Augustana College in Rock Island and a Doctor of Fine Arts from St. Ambrose University in Davenport. A native of Estherville and Guthrie Center, James Dixon arrived at the university in 1946 with an interest in conducting. He came to the attention of Philip Greeley Clapp, the director of the School of Music and director of the orchestra. And the rest, as they say, is history. For people, Professor Dixon, who are not familiar with I'd love you to share the story of growing up in a small town in Iowa, some of your memories that kind of have shaped you in Guthrie Center.
Well, Guthrie Center is the county seat of Guthrie County, and when I was young, it was a thriving little community of 2008. I presume I was amongst those 2008. I was just there last weekend, and it's no longer so thriving, unhappily. These little towns are having a tough time.
Were you seeing old friends? And
no, I just went up with a couple of students of mine. They wanted to see it and see my humble beginnings. But I was very fortunate because this little town had some extraordinary people in it. In the school system, there was Miss Thomas, who taught first grade for generation after generation. Mrs. Mosier, who was the principal of the junior high, who taught for generation after generation. Miss Safely, who was the principal of the high school, taught for years and years. And then Miss Kilgore, who taught for years and years and years. I mentioned those four principally because it was from 1 through 12 that their influence radiated. And they were tough. They were all tough. But more interesting was that they were regarded as the aristocracy of Guthrie Center. Nobody fooled around with them. Well, at any rate, one of the very good things about Miss Safely was that she taught Latin. She liked to teach Latin, and it was an elective, and for some reason I had sense enough to take it. But you imagine in the 1940s, for a little town like Guthrie Center to offer Latin, 2 years of it. Miss Kilgore was the librarian, and she taught history. We took the university orchestra back to play a concert. We were on a little tour. We started in Sioux City and went to Atlantic and then came to Guthrie Center and back home. And we came to Guthrie Center to play a concert. Miss Kilgore was in charge of that. She had retired, but she was in charge. And guess how many people were there? 2008.
You must have been more than Guthrie Center. They came from the whole county.
Well, they were all there because Miss Kilgore told them to.
You didn't say no to Miss Kilgore.
No, you did not say no to Miss Kilgore.
Oh, you were lucky then.
I was lucky, and then, of course, I have to mention Sam Raymer, who was the barber for whom I worked when I was 11 and 12.
That was your first job, right?
That was my first job. I was his shine boy and kind of janitor. Mm-hmm. And he was a very exacting taskmaster, and I revered him. I revere him. Mm-hmm. He died at age 96, cut my hair when he was 95, just steady as an arrow. Then I went to work at the bakery with Lloyd and Helen Ferguson, and I saw both of them last November when I was in Ames to conduct the All-State. Mm. And they had retired for years and years and years, and unhappily Lloyd left us just a couple months after that, but I saw them both.
They followed. They must have been so proud of you.
Well, they were, and they were very, very good people to work for. Mm-hmm. And so I was very fortunate. These kinds of jobs, being a shine boy or working in a bakery for a private owner rather than a chain of some mm-hmm. kind, is an experience that young men ought to have, mm-hmm. because it introduces you to the world as it really is.
Of work.
Yeah, as it really is, mm-hmm. And I treasure that part of my education as much as the education. I got a report from Miss Safely one time that I would be a straight A student if I could stay awake in class.
Oh, you did that.
Because I was working in the bakery and I was...
You were working and going to school and didn't have much...
And I went to sleep all the time.
You also had in high school a head of the band.
Yes, he was very, very important too, and he did the high school band, and then in summer we gave summer concerts, and then we also gave summer concerts in Stewart. And that I was involved in all those. And
he took you to hear some of the great orchestras.
To hear the Minneapolis Symphony, which mm-hmm. is probably the turning point in my life. And he also, I believe, wrote Metropolis a letter on my behalf. And I think that's how Metropolis started to have an interest in me, because of the determination of someone coming from such an impoverished childhood, and from a musical point of view, a rather impoverished beginning.
When you saw him conduct, was something lit in you?
Oh, sure.
So that was kind of that shift for you to thinking
right.
more, because you played an instrument, I forgot.
I played trumpet.
The trumpet.
But I realized that this is what I really wanted to do. But how foolhardy it was to try.
Well, you did, but you got your first conduct.
Well, Miss Kilgore, I asked her years later what she thought when I went to college. She said, "James, I thought you were mad." Absolutely mad.
Because you were going to be a conductor.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
we're so glad you came here to Iowa.
I am too. And by the way, I came in 1948.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, 1948, not 46. When you came here to Iowa after, being under this J.R. Compton, you caught the attention of Clapp. What are your memories of him?
Well, he was an extraordinary man. I mean, even in today, we owe him a great deal, because he came out here. Dr. Clapp was the kind of Leonard Bernstein of his time. I mean, he was, when he graduated from Harvard in, I don't know, 1900 or 1906 or somewhere along in there, And he was a very facile writer, and he wrote for the Boston Transcript, I think it was. He wrote articles. He went to Europe, heard the first performance of the Mahler Symphony No. 8 in Munich, which was a historic occasion. Then came out here, and from a very, very small, modest beginning as a department of music, he built this almost single-handedly.
With a national reputation.
Yes, yes. No, it's an extraordinary accomplishment. It's an extraordinary accomplishment. And I got to become very fond of him. I knew him personally the last couple years. Charlie Ebel and John Sims and I used to have dinner with him on Friday evening, and that was one of our treats. That was one of our treats.
That's amazing he came out to Iowa, isn't it?
It is, it is. And what's funny is that his contemporary at Eastman was Howard Hanson, who became quite a well-known composer and built the Eastman School of Music. So what's funny is that Hanson went east from Nebraska to Clapp came west.
And came west. Well, we're just glad he did.
I'm glad both did exactly what they did.
Absolutely. Well, after you graduated from the University of Iowa, you were drafted, and
Yes,
you went over to Germany and got to conduct. That must have been a real plus.
Well, it really was a plus. I got to Germany, and I conducted the Seventh Army Symphony. And our concerts were not for the troops, they were for the Germans. And it was a kind of propaganda thing in the way that the Army wanted to show the German population that we had young people who could play Beethoven and Brahms and contemporary American music and play it well. And to that extent it was really quite successful, because the Germans were absolutely astonished.
That we knew who Bach was?
Well, that we could
Mozart,
play, and we could play, and they found it even more remarkable that the conductor of the orchestra was a corporal.
Yes, where rank was is very important. So when you got the call after your stint in the Army from Jaime Waxman, did you think twice about coming back to Iowa?
I didn't think even once. I just said I'll be there. Because it was a dream I had never dared dream. And Mr. Waxman, certainly I owe him almost everything, because he took a big chance. I was 27 years old.
To be a conductor.
And to be here, and to be Dr. Clapp's successor as conductor of the orchestra, that was...
He had a lot of faith in you. A lot of faith in you. Did you think when you came here, I mean, did you hope to accomplish, I mean, did you have some goals in mind?
Oh, I just kind of wanted to study and see what happened. And getting the Army Orchestra was really very encouraging to me. That I had to audition for it, and won the audition, and so that was very encouraging. That perhaps I was on the right track.
Well, when in 1955, you were just in your 20s, you organized the performance of Dmitri Metropolis in the field house.
Yes, yes, yes.
Was that quite a... Weren't you thrilled about that?
Well, I was thrilled, but I was also scared to death, because it involved huge resources. I mean, huge chorus and huge orchestra, 4 extra bands and all kinds of things, and so it was a little scary, but
Did they film that concert? Did they film that?
I don't think so. I think that's before video.
Before video.
But I don't know that. But I don't think that. No, I don't.
Nobody filmed it or recorded it.
All I do remember that the rocket came through and added one more voice.
That's great.
But Metropolis always loved coming here. He came here and played the piano concerto with me on one occasion. Excuse me. He always liked to come to universities very much.
He believed, and he was very generous, wasn't he, about going to small towns with his magnificent orchestra and giving them a chance to hear.
Well, like you told me earlier, that you in Aberdeen, South Dakota,
heard him as
Heard him,
as a
and
10 or
I heard-
11-year-old.
And I heard him as 13 in Ames.
Well, how did he meet you? I mean, when did you come into his sights?
I think Compton wrote him a letter telling him of my enthusiasm, and then I was one of those people in the line afterwards, 2 or 3 times, and then after Dr. Clapp took note of me, another important person was Emery Waldauer, who taught violin here, and he started to take notice of me, and Jaime started to take notice of me, and before you know it, he started to take notice of me.
And that was a wonderful, he was quite an influence on you, I read.
Oh, yes, oh, yes. Oh, he was a very powerful person, very powerful personality.
Was he a strict and a taskmaster as the conductor, or?
No.
No.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You were, for many, many years, the conductor in the Quad City Symphony. Must have been a nice balance to go to maybe the not quite so young musicians in the Quad Cities and then coming back here and conducting.
It was an almost ideal combination because the orchestra down there is very good. You have older players. The attrition rate is much smaller than it is in a university. I mean, the attrition rate here is about 25%. 20 to 30% in any given year, so you're kind of starting over all the time, but down there you weren't. And you could build a kind of routine and a kind of, and my last years there were very pleasant because I didn't have to really say very much. We just did it. They knew exactly what I would stop, and you know, they'd kind of nod. They know what I'm going to say, so we just go ahead and do it.
What a wonderful association.
It was, and I loved the area, and I loved the opportunity not only of conducting that orchestra, but playing with really extraordinary artists, such as Henry Schering and Garrick Olson is a very good friend of mine, Alicia Della Rocha, Richard Tucker, and all kinds of people.
Your first love, I know, is conducting. Did you grow to care about teaching?
The longer I taught, the more I cared about it. And I would think, I said on one of these occasions of my retirement, I'll never do this retiring again, I can tell you that. But I said that I thought of my career or life in 2 tracks, that of the conductor as a performer and that of as a teacher. And at one time I would have thought that the conducting was more important, but I'd come to think that the teaching's more important. It's more enduring.
When you look back at your early career, all those teachers that you remember their names and give them such credit that...
Yeah, you see, and the students that I've had now, they are out continuing some of my principles and some of my, whereas my performances exist only in the memories of the people who were there. They're rather ephemeral.
I read that you are able to get your ego out of your conducting, and that's not quite something one thinks about as a kind of a selflessness when one conducts. I mean, one doesn't think of that as a conductor.
Yeah.
How have you managed to harness that?
Well, I don't know whether I'm successful in that. I try very hard. The easiest way to explain it is that if you hear a concert by me or anybody else, and your reaction to the concert is, isn't Brahms a wonderful composer? Isn't that a wonderful piece? Rather than, isn't Dixon a great conductor? Then you've really succeeded. You've really succeeded because it's Brahms.
The magic of the music.
It's Brahms that we're really interested in. Andre Previn has I'm one of these collectors of aphorisms. And Andre Previn has a wonderful thing. He says the difference between classical music and jazz or popular music is that in popular music, the performer is always greater than the music. In classical music, the music's always greater than the performer.
That's wonderful.
It's true. It's true. I mean, it's true. Mahler is far greater than me, or Brahms is far greater than I.
What do you think is your main purpose as a conductor? I read once that you said, well, you weren't a traffic director.
No, but just what I just said.
Just that is to bring out...
It is to allow the music to communicate with the listener.
It's as simple as that.
Stay out of the way. That's my job. That's my job.
Were you considered very strict with your orchestra, student orchestra?
Oh, yes. The kids like to make a fuss about it. They know that I was a teddy bear.
Oh, no, under.
Now that I'm retired, I can say it. They have a lot of this business of how tough I was. No, it's a kind of, if we're going to do it, we may as well do it right. We might as well do it well because it will make you feel better. Doing it in a haphazard way will not make you feel proud when you're sitting on the stage of Hanshaw Auditorium and you have to slink off stage hoping no one will recognize you. Whereas if you do your best, and I'll decide what your best is, then you can walk off proudly.
Sounds like the voice of Sam from your first job, who was so exacting.
I think so.
I have to mention this for people who are new to Iowa City, that you've always been a champion of Gustav Mahler's music and chose his Symphony No. 6 in A minor for the final concert. Was that like choosing between some of your best friends? I mean, to have to choose one symphony for your final concert?
No, not really. I chose it because, first of all, I knew the kids wanted to do some Mahler, and I thought this particular symphony was best suited to their capabilities. In Davenport, with my retirement, I did the 5th Symphony. But I didn't do the 9th, because the 9th Mahler, because it's extraordinarily difficult in some regards, and we would not have been able to do it as well. So I wanted something that would challenge them, of course, but that they could do well, so that we could all feel that we had done our work that day.
Now, Mahler, Austrian, was both a conductor and a composer. Is that, were you drawn to him for, besides his music, because of that, or because of...
No, I think his music is what attracted me, and then I felt a kind of distant kinship with his conducting, but we don't know anything about it except what we read. But he was apparently a very, very good conductor, very good, and particularly Mozart. Particularly Mozart. And there is a wonderful story of when Mahler was in Budapest, had the opera in Budapest, and he was conducting Don Giovanni of Mozart. And Brahms came to play a concert, and his friends insisted that he come to hear, and he didn't want to. He just wanted to go home. So in the European theaters, you know, the boxes, they have the seats in front, and then there's always a little kind of area in back to hang your coat and that sort of thing. And there's usually a little bench to sit on. So apparently, according to the story, Brahms went back and went to sleep, tried to go to sleep. And they said, as soon as the Mozart started, suddenly he came to and came out and listened. He was very impressed.
That's a wonderful...
Very impressed.
Wonderful story.
Yeah. Now, Brahms didn't like Mahler as a composer quite that much.
But as a conductor.
Yes.
Now I want to move on to, there's so much to cover, but now that you retired and finally you are kind of you're hanging loose, it must be a wonderful feeling.
Yes, it is. I probably am not making as much of it as a lot of people would.
But you've only, what's been 2 months?
Well, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, well, I'd say.
But no, I'm getting my affairs in order here with the retirement money and making my will again for the 20th time. Told my lawyer, I said, here I come again. He said,
that's what retirement does.
Well, that's what it does. He said, you'll be back.
You'll be back
again.
Yeah, it's a living...
But no, I'm looking forward to, for the first time in my life, to not have any responsibilities. I'm going to just kind of, I'm not going to rush into anything, and I'm just going to, when the fall school starts in the fall, I'll probably be in San Francisco, and I'll probably say, well, I don't have to go back and work.
For people who don't know, you have a place in San Francisco that you've enjoyed for, what, 15 years, you
At
said?
least, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
that's wonderful. You have Iowa City, I know you love, and then San Francisco. That's a nice balance also.
It is a nice balance, and it's a wonderful city. If we could just do something about the earthquakes, we'd be be just fine.
You mentioned before the interview that you did suffer damage from that earthquake a few years ago.
1889, yeah. Yeah, the building did, I didn't. But,
well, no.
Well, I suffered some damage.
Excuse me, I meant you suffered, your building did. Tell me your interests. I read that you love to cook, and a special kind of cooking? Or
well, I'm partial to Italian cooking.
And you're an avid reader.
Yes, I do read a lot.
And
what's kind of nice is that the more I read now, I forget, and I can go right back and read the same one again.
Those class over and over.
Yeah. No, I like history. I like history very much. I don't read that much fiction, but I love history. I love. I'm reading a biography of Stonewall Jackson. Just simply. I just don't know anything about him, and I just thought it'd be nice to know something. And somebody gave me the book, so. So you're
going to read it and report back.
Well, I'm afraid the book is in greater detail than it has information that I need not know.
Now you'll come back to Iowa City though, and be a part of.
Yes, I'm planning to come back sometime in the fall, at some point.
Well, it's a wonderful story. And tell me, my last question is, what do you think, what keeps you in Iowa City? What do you think we do the best here in Iowa City?
Well, I think it's a Midwestern thing, but it's rather locally centered here. Aside from the extraordinary accomplishments of this university, there is in the Midwest a kind of honesty, a kind of personal integrity that it is not in such evidence on either coast. That's a generalization that's perhaps a little harsh, but nonetheless, a man's word is his bond, and I think that's terribly important. And I do think that Midwesterners are basically honest, and in an increasingly ambiguous world in that regard, I vote for honesty.
Well, I think we'll end it there. That was a wonderful way to end the interview. My guest on One of a Kind has been music professor James Dixon. He directed the University of Iowa Symphony Orchestra for more than 40 years. Jaime Boxman, retired director of the School of Music, offers this assessment of Dixon's career, and I quote, "His ability is based on something more deep-rooted than diligence. His musicality and efficient manner by which he obtains his musical objectives earn the respect of all those who work under him. He will leave a great legacy at the University of Iowa," end quote. And Professor Dixon told an interviewer that it was important, and I quote this, "to have had a dream and to have been able to fulfill it for the most part. No one's dreams are fulfilled completely, but I have come close enough," end quote. We are fortunate indeed that his dreams included Iowa and the university. James Dixon is one of a kind.